Hello, everyone. This is Janet Tingwald, and I will be facilitating your session today. I am a certified coach and consultant with 20 years of coaching and consulting experience. I have worked in major corporations in supporting them in their leadership development and manager development and team building. I've always just worked with people on really becoming their best selves, whether it's in a team or individually, to really live their best life and to have their best work experience. I'm really excited to be here today to share this information with you. And I know that you're busy, and I know that there's a lot going on with the storms and everything. I hope everyone was safe and didn't have too much damage. But I want to thank you for giving up some of your time to be here today for this important topic. In this time together, we're going to explore the 4 generations that are, why won't my slides aren't moving? Oh, there we go. We're talking about the 4 generations in the workplace and get to know them a little bit better, and what the differences that they bring up. And then we're going to talk at the end about some next steps. This is just more of an introduction, so we're not going to take a deep dive into actual action planning, but there are still going to be some things that you can think about and bring into what you're doing. So before we go there, before we get started, just in the chat, if you would be willing to tell me one thing that maybe that you appreciate about having multiple generations in your workplace. Just one thing that you appreciate about having multiple generations in your workplace. And Johanna, that's with us today, that's helping me, will read those to us just to kind of bring them into the room. Help us kind of all get connected a little bit here virtually. And then also maybe something that puzzles you, like why do they do this? It might feel like a frustration, but puzzles you. Why do they do this way? It might even sound like, what is wrong with them? That's okay. That's something that is puzzling you as to what is different. If you would be willing, just to quick little note in the chat. Johanna, was there something?
Yeah, I can go ahead and get us started. We have someone saying the experience that others bring to the organization.
Yes, great. Great point.
Another one is an opportunity for people to learn from others and on different perspectives. The same idea. So approaching an idea from different perspectives. Another one is the ability to, and they say reverse mentor. So it would be where I think typically we think of mentors as someone who has age and experience taking maybe a younger person under their wing, but it looks like reverse mentoring, they say being able to reverse mentor a younger employee mentors an older employee to help them learn new ideas. So that's kind of cool.
Yes. Yeah, that is a great point, especially when it comes to technology.
Yes. We have another one, and I think this is in response to, I think your second question, Janet, what puzzles you about working with multiple generations in the workplace? And this person said, sadly, the stereotypes that some generations were taught about certain ethnicities.
What certain generations were taught about ethnicity. So it brings in another dimension, actually, with that. And
I think I would also echo that I think certain generations stereotype other generations, you know, just based on age and technology savvy and whatnot. So that would be, yeah, so not just on ethnicity, but just generational stereotyping.
Yes, it's very true. And we actually, that's a great segue. Thank you for the help. And it's a great segue into talking about what a generation is and to start to look at what our differences are, because there are so many things that influences how we see things. So what is a generation? Well, it's a group of people who are born within about a 20-year time span, and they're perceived to share similar behaviors, values, and ideas as a result of social, political, and economic events that occurred during their formative years. So we're going to, with that in mind, I just think that this is so fascinating to really see how this works. And you'll see that in this chart that there are the traditionalists, or sometimes called the silent type. And we're going to walk through some shaping events for each generation to see how these events have created behaviors in them today. And you'll see also, the chart with the 4 generations across the top, and then the birth years also that are in the second line. And I want you to think about what's happening during their formative years. Think about what happened when this group was about 10 to 20 years old. Socially, politically, economically, what happened during that time that might have influenced them? And I do want to say that the thing about this is that it has to do with personal experience. So there may be people from other countries that you're currently working with that didn't have these same experiences. So Johanna, if we could go back to the chat, and what are just kind of popcorn with the group, just put let's look at the silent generation first. What are some of the social influences or political or economic events that you think might have influenced them? That from 1928 to 1945, what are just 1 or 2 things, just if you think of one thing that might have been a social, political, or economic event?
We have the Great Depression and the World Wars.
Yes.
World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Women's voting rights, desegregation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Raised by parents that survived the Great Depression.
Yes.
And the space age.
Starting to move into that. Yes. So, it's so interesting because then this generation becomes motivated by respect, recognition, and providing long-term value to the company. Their values are more about being dependable, straightforward, tactful, loyal, obedience over individualism. And they're really motivated by and value job titles and money. And you're going to see kind of a theme with these things as we go along. So great work. Thank you for your contributions, for your interactions. Because it is a depression, the war, also radio and movies, as those became more and more influential. So let's look at the baby boomers from 46 to 64. What do you think some of the influences were there? Feels kind of like a game show. What do you think the influences were there socially, politically, economically?
Right here, they're rolling in. The Vietnam War, Watergate, continuing of the space age, air travel, immigration, the civil rights movement, the sexual revolution.
Yes.
And then post-war babies.
Yes, and that was the time also during the boomers that women really moved out of the home and into the workplace. So that had a huge impact on relationships between men and women moving forward and really starting to really self-actualize, and also impacted the family because now mom's going to work rather than being home. So there were a lot of those influences. So the boomers are motivated by company loyalty, teamwork, and duty. They value optimism, team-oriented, they're more workaholic, and they're more competitive. It was really about getting ahead, which you can kind of see if you think about the generation before them was about the Great Depression and World War II. This was now let's get revived, let's move forward. And with women now coming out in droves, it was a generation of moving forward, really moving forward and building something. So let's move to Gen X, 1965 to 1980. What do you think some of the influences were there?
Computers, technology, Y2K, which seems like so long ago yet. I mean, it was 20 years ago now.
Yeah, so yes, so not a lot of Y2K yet, and just barely starting with the computers, but yeah. The AIDS epidemic was really hit the sexual revolution of the me generation.
And then latchkey kids.
Yes, which came from all the women going to work, right? So differences, changes in the family. Fall of the Berlin Wall, the dot-com boom were some of the things. You're right on. So they became motivated because of everything that was happening from the boomers and the latchkey kids. They were more motivated by diversity, work-life balance, their personal professional interests over the companies. And they valued more being flexible, informal, a little skeptical, and more independent. And one of the big things here that I see that is so different is the influences of the wars, especially, they don't talk about World War I because it's not as prevalent in our current history as far as people still alive. But World War II and how that, and the Vietnam War, Korean War, all of the wars that happened in the first two generations, that was more of a sense of loyalty, of teamwork, of duty that we didn't have in, say, Generation X. So, Anne, let's move to millennials. What are some of the, from 81 to 97? What were some of the influencers there?
We have September 11th.
Yes.
The internet.
Yes, big one, huge, changed the world.
Social media. The recession of 2008. Terrorist attacks. School shootings.
Yes. You guys are good.
And children with schedules.
Children with schedules, yes. Yes, so it did change things again. You can see when you look at these kind of an evolution of our society, in not just the generational, but an evolution too. So, gosh, you guys are good. This is great. You're like doing my presentation for me. You're making it so easy. Millennials are more motivated by responsibility, quality of their manager, and unique work. They value competitive. They're more civic-minded, open-minded, and achievement-oriented. So again, we're starting to see another shift as we move into the millennials. Now, Generation Z isn't on here, but they are now starting to come into the workplace, and that is, basically from 98 up to, it's going to be up to, add 20 years to that. So where we're at now, and they're, like I said, just coming into the workplace. So what do you think that are things that are going to influence Generation Z, which are a lot of people's children that might be on the webinar? Remember, these are the years from when they're 10 to 20 years old.
Social media.
Mm-hmm.
Targeted marketing.
Yes.
I mean, let's see
so
here.
many different things, but there's going to be, like 9/11 really changed things. So what is life like after 9/11 with all the security and everything that we have to go through now? This was really more of the age where there was the Great Recession. And, it seems like Generation Z was, it's like they were born knowing how to use technology. I watch my grandkids, and it's like they just came out knowing how to do it. And of course, the current pandemic and the whole awareness of Black Lives Matters is going to have an impact on these kids. They're right now, what they're seeing is they're motivated by diversity, personalization, individuality, and creativity. The thing about them that has really shifted that is interesting to me is that they see things more globally and very entrepreneurial. And you can see that with so many, even young, teenagers that are starting companies. So it's, to look at this and think about what we just talked about from 1928 to, today, 2020, of how everything has evolved and what the differences are. So now that we have a good sense of these generations, let's look at, and the events that shape them, let's look at the percentages that they make up. So traditionalists now are still around 2%. Boomers are around 25 to 25%. Gen Xers about 33, and millennials around 35. And like I said, Generation Z is starting to come in more and more into the workplace. So we'll see that influence also. Now, looking at the benefits of multi-generations, and we talked about some of them. You guys had some really, really good ideas at the top of the presentation as far as benefits. But with more effective communication, some of them are, according to AARP report, leading a multi-generational workforce, those benefits include professionals who take the time to educate themselves on generational issues will improve intergenerational understanding, multi-generational inclusiveness, respect, and productivity. There's improved competitiveness. Education about the generation reduces age discrimination, and it alleviates potential organizational brain drain as older generations leave the workplace. One of the most valuable things they have is, you've maybe heard of the term brain trust before, because of the vast knowledge of the history even of the industry that helps you to learn and move forward from. And it makes you more flexible, reflect the multi-generational market, and helps you to make better decisions. It also is going to provide you with more effective recruitment. Recruiting messages specifically tailored to each generation will attract talent across all generations, and improved employee engagement and morale is also important. As we all know, managers that know how to motivate employees from different generations really improve engagement and morale. And that's going to come down to what we're all looking for this is better employee retention. It's shown that organizations that effectively manage generations will find happier, more engaged employees. And of course, this when happier employees stay. We tend to stay where we're happy at work. That same report cited the following benefits of multi-generational work teams, that they, like I said, they make better decisions, and they have received broad-based input from multiple generational perspectives. They demonstrate increased innovation and creativity. So they've learned to work together across the knowledge base and the skill set by being open to looking at what each generation can offer. So let's look at some best practices. Well, of course, the first one is going to be don't dwell on the differences. That just generally reinforces stereotype. Use everybody's ability and goals. You want to identify how to motivate each generation. But of course, each generation is made up by individuals. So you've got to look at the individuals. You want to forge partnership with employees of different ages, encourage them to share their opinions, and to not make assumptions just because maybe they fall in the boomer age group or the millennial age group that they are a certain way. Get to know them, build collaborative relationships. If you're a manager, mix teams up or suggest that. And then offer different working options if possible. Meet them where they're at. Some of the other things is develop incentives for different stages that they're at in their work development and also in their life. Study your employees. Look at them as individuals. Look at broad base. Okay, they're in this generation. How does that fit for them? Get curious about them and find commonality between the employees and encourage them of how they can learn from each other. How can they get curious? And you don't necessarily want to confuse character issues like immaturity, laziness, or with generational traits. Whereas boomers may see a 60-hour work week as prerequisite to achieving success, I see more millennials prefer a more balanced life. They watch their parents work really long, hard hours and sacrifice family time and fun time, and they're not as willing to do that. So really considering the life paths and incentivizing employees to what works for them. What is it that they want to achieve in their life? What it comes down to is that everybody wants to be appreciated for the qualities they bring to the group. We all want to feel respected. As respected and appreciated employees stay. And we want to be respected by our coworkers. People today want some flexibility in their life and to be seen as a unique individual who is respected and valued. And we can do that by giving all employees a voice, regardless of age or tenure. Give them a forum to present ideas, concerns, and complaints. So let's talk about next steps. So I don't have anything here because basically what I want to encourage you today is think about just one thing. Just one thing that you heard today that maybe made you go, huh, that was interesting, that you could start to implement in your life, in your sphere, because you can't influence everybody, but you can work with your own your own self in how you have relationships with other people of different ages in your workspace, and also how that, and you lead by example. So I want to encourage you, and if you'd be willing to share it, that would be fabulous, of one thing, just one thing that you got out of this that you would be willing to think about, get curious about, practice it in the weeks to come.
Patience.
Patience, awesome.
Different influences in other generations' lives.
Mm-hmm.
Their perspective of work growing up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that diversity is not just race, but it's also generation.
Yes, it is. And it always brings me back to Stephen Covey's to seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. Get curious about other people and what's going on for them. And, it's not oftentimes it's not what we do, it's why we do it. Just get curious. I want to thank you for your time and participation today in this. I really enjoyed presenting this material to you. And I know Johanna now has a couple of things that she wants to tell you a little about EFR and how that can benefit you regardless of the generation that you fall in.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. Thanks for the great information today. I do want to let everyone know that if this is a topic that you're interested in taking a deeper dive in, or you think your organization would benefit from, we do offer a 1 and 2 hour training course on diversity in the workplace. And so, as Janet mentioned at the beginning, this is just kind of scratching the surface. So if you did want something a little more detailed, don't hesitate to reach out to EFR, to reach out to your account manager, and they can set up that training for you. Currently, due to the COVID situation, we're facilitating most of our trainings remotely, but we have the ability to do webinars such as this or Zoom trainings if that's more up your alley right now. I want to share just briefly about the EAP benefits. If you're listening, you have EFR's EAP benefits, and that means that you have access to a variety of services that are really just one phone call away. We offer 24-hour phone support, so whether it's 3 p.m. or 3 a.m., if you call our 800 number, you will speak with a master's level clinician about what's going on. And we always say that life happens and we're here to help. So oftentimes people think, well, the EAP is really only for a truly serious situation or a crisis situation. And while we can help in those situations, we're really here to help you prevent those. So if you're experiencing some conflict in a relationship, if you're experiencing stress or anxiety due to maybe the recent storm or the lingering COVID situation, give us a call. We are here to talk to you and identify any resources that may be available. You, depending on your benefit, you either have 3 or 6 sessions of in-person counseling at no cost. A lot of that is still being delivered via telehealth due to the COVID situation again. So it's in-person or telehealth counseling sessions, and that's 3 or 6 sessions. It just depends on what benefit your organization has. If you call us, we'll be able to tell you that information. We also have financial and legal consultation. These are telephonic resources. They're 30 minutes, and you get a 30-minute consult based on whatever your issue is. So if you are looking to draft a living will, if you're looking to file a custody petition, if you're looking to settle a dispute with someone over your parents' estate, call us. We can direct you on a path that could help you reduce stress, maybe even reduce the amount of time it takes to research, how do I manage the situation? So we're really just one phone call away. We're a completely confidential resource. Your employer does not know that you called us. I cannot emphasize that enough. I think oftentimes there's the confidentiality barrier exists, and that's why people don't call, is because, gosh, what if someone finds out? What if my coworker or my leader finds out? And they won't. We adhere to the same HIPAA privacy practices that your physician or your dentist or your eye doctor would have to do. So please consider calling us. I always say, if you think you should call EFR, you probably should call EFR. So don't hesitate to call. With that, we are going to close out today. Thank you so much to everyone who joined. Again, we're hoping everyone is safe and that you haven't been too impacted by the storm here in Iowa and other parts of the Midwest. But thanks everyone so much for joining today, and have a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janet.